Peter, you've had quite a lot of different interactions with the police in different roles, actually, I think, over the years.
In different projects, different roles. We've had a few police officers on our course, on our MA Criminology course. I've done quite a number of evaluation-type projects with the police, looking at CCTV, looking at what to do when someone's arrested, looking at police dealing with young car takers. The most interesting was when I was observing the training of a cohort of firearms officers, the selection and training, and they took me up to the site where they do this training, and I got to play the bad guy and was stood in a hut with some other retired police officer, and all he wanted to do was sit there and have a fag. And I thought, well, they're surrounding us with guns now. Shouldn't we be doing something? So I started shouting, "Oh, come and get me, copper. You know, you'll never take me alive." And he said, "You don't have to do that, you know." So I think I was getting into the role a bit too. And recently we've been looking at the way the police have been handling public order incidents in Brighton. I started out quite critical of what I thought was a very forceful overreaction, but I think the more we've discovered of the whole story, the more measured account we can produce of that. But it's been a real eye opener. I think there's a detective chief inspector here whose office and desk we were using most of Easter. And I expect he's checked that everything's still there. But that was fascinating. We were talking to officers who'd been on the front line being physically attacked and abused, and then we talked about the whole strategy for managing disorder in Brighton. And of course, there's a lot of protests in Brighton. I didn't realise just how many protests there are in town.
I wonder, I know Martin Richards, I just wondered if I think one of his senior colleagues here just wanted to make any comment, don't have to, on what it's like from the police end to be asked to cooperate with an author or to work with a criminologist and what the issues are that are arising. No requirement to, but if I know they said that. Yep. Okay, yes. You're in the dark. We'll just find you. Thanks very much. Thank you.
If I say anything wrong, I've got a reporter from the Argus, a senior crime reporter, not very far from me, who didn't disclose his identity just a short while ago. Some of my colleagues here, and one Peter's going to analyse me, and the other Peter's going to write about it, which is... I think it's delightful it's not an evening to plug, but I'd actually like to promote both the criminological side of things and the fictional and not-so-fictional side of things represented on the stage, because I say to a lot of colleagues, certainly a lot of new starters in policing, if you like soap operas, you'll like policing because you're in one. And I think that's reflected in some of Peter James's stories, I have to say, and very faithfully in most regards. And it took me 20-plus years of police service before I got my Masters in Criminology, which is not a boast, it's an admission of guilt, really. It's not played a sufficient enough part in the training. We've got two very senior detectives in the room today. It's not played a significant part in police training up till now, and certainly should. But if I may say, without sounding too cheesy, you two gents play an important part in policing and celebrating policing, as well as pursuing your own side of things. So from this end of the hall, no complaints.
Thanks very much, Martin. Okay, we will be coming soon to questions that some of you have put down, but before we do, I want to switch our angle a little bit. Many of you here, I know, and the stage we were talking about earlier, are very familiar with the famous quote from Keith Waterhouse, who once said, "Brighton looks like a town that is constantly helping the police with their inquiries." And I suppose, I mean, just a couple of questions. I'll lay them out and let the two Peters touch where they want. For Peter here particularly, the question that must have occurred to many of us, could you have written the same novel and picked, say, Bristol or Liverpool as a context? Is there something particular about Brighton that links the novels, or is it just a good setting for it? And not exclusively for the Peter on my left. The question is, well, if Waterhouse is right, or indeed even if he's not right, what are the kinds of crime patterns that perhaps do characterise Brighton and Hove at the moment either in contradistinction or in parallel with things elsewhere. You know, we all know what's special about Brighton, the Brighton Festival, that's why we're here, the Fringe. But I mean, that's with you. I mean, why Brighton and could it be Bristol?
There's another great quote I love, which was Noel Card. He said, dear Brighton, pears, queers and racketeers. If I was a villain and I wanted to design my perfect criminal environment, I would design Brighton. It has got everything I would want. Major seaport on both sides, great for bringing in drugs, great for exporting stolen goods. An airport, little Shoreham airport, no customs, no immigration. Miles of unguarded coastline, lots of escape routes, all the channel ports, the Channel Tunnel, fast train to London. Largest number of antique shops. Great for getting rid of our stolen goods. 2 unis, very big, young, hip community, great recreational drugs market. Massive transient community. Almost all the dregs of England end up here as they slowly make their way down. So great for drug dealers to recruit new street pushers. A title that I know the tourist board don't like me reiterating, but I think for 9 years running, we've been the injecting drug death capital of the UK. Lost it, was it last year to Liverpool, but got it back again. And it's a fantastic place to live. I was born here. I love this place. I think I do have a theory that, and no, it wouldn't work the same as Southampton or Bristol because Brighton is such an extraordinarily fabulous place. And I do have a theory that all the great cities that you'd actually want to be in are the ones that do have a criminal undertow. They give a place its vibrancy. I mean, Graham Greene captured it brilliantly in Brighton Rock. And if you look at Australia, where's the city you actually want to be? Sydney is the prettiest, but Melbourne is by far the most fun. Yeah, and the vibrant cities in the States, like New York, LA, New Orleans, Miami, are the ones that have that kind of criminal undertow. So I think it kind of goes with the terrain in a way, and it's part of that element of this city. Brighton has this beautiful exterior. It's a stunning place, and it's got that slightly dark edginess about it.
I think most of that, I mean, I'm not a Brighton-born person, but I've been here 25 or so years. Brighton has that kind of bohemian fringe and a kind of radical element, which again is not unconnected with the kind of protest culture here. Probably not unconnected with the fact that we have a green leadership on the council now. So in a sense, Brighton's at the forefront, a bit of a cutting-edge element. The other element of it, and it's reflected in work we've done about Brighton, and it goes along the lines of the kind of private affluence and public squalor agenda. Behind those Regency facades, there lie a whole load of houses in multiple occupation, poor people, transient people, semi-homeless people. Brighton is a very divided town. I think it has a very vibrant media-based economy now, but it also has 2 very large residual housing estates with indigenous populations that much of the new media economy is largely bypassed. And I think that tension, when I first came to Brighton, this was the late 80s, Brighton was being described as the 39th most affluent area in Europe, but the 20th most deprived area in Britain at the same time. So this is the juxtaposition of rich and poor. And relative deprivation's always been a real driver of crime. There are the have-nots alongside the haves, and the have-nots take shortcuts.